Hi everybody, it's Michelle here at Solo in Canada, Musings from Midlife, and I'm here to do a video today which is going to be the counterpoint to my original video, the first one I ever posted, which was 10 reasons why living alone could be awesome. And now I'm doing the counterpoint, and how that came about was a girlfriend of mine contacted me the other day and said, "Oh, I got around to watching your video," and she told me which one she watched, and I said, "What'd you think?" And she is a solo in midlife who lives alone, and she said, "Well, I thought it was very good, but I have to say that I could come up with all kinds of reasons why it wasn't so great." And I said, "Yes, but I didn't want to start off this whole project with the negatives and being, looking at the downside." So I didn't do that, but it was my intention eventually to get to it. So I'm going to get to it here because I do believe in being very authentic and tell it like it is and give the reality for, this is my experience, my world. But I talk to a lot of people and I have lots of friends and I do tons of reading. So I don't think my world is too different than many. So today's video is the 10 reasons why sometimes living alone is not so great. And I'm just going to preface too that when I say in this video living with others, it doesn't have to be a spouse. It's just people who are living with roommates or with family members or with partners. And so let's get started. The very first reason is for safety. And there, there's many different components to safety, but in general, just really accidents that can happen in the home. You could potentially be in trouble if you can't get to your phone, if you're incapacitated in some way, and there's no plan for anybody to be at your place anytime soon. It could be a while before somebody comes to your aid. Or even just crime, and it doesn't really matter where you live these days. There's some component of crime that you might have to deal with, and sometimes when you live on your own, you can potentially, be a little bit more of a target, but let's hope not, right? And number two, loneliness, right? For some people, especially people who don't have a very social world, and they haven't created a large support system or a large group of people that they spend time with, and perhaps they're no longer working, or they work in a job where they're just remote working, or whatever their role is at work, they're on their own, then potentially you could go days without speaking to somebody. And if you don't have any plans, I know I've had the odd weekend where I have nothing going on the whole weekend and didn't get out for some reason. And I wouldn't, if it not for my pet, I would not have uttered a single word out loud. And so there is a loneliness component that solos have to make an effort to put strategies in place to make sure that doesn't happen to them, because it can be isolating. And so that's number two. And number three, you have to ask for help more, or you're faced in a dilemma whether you ask for help or not. And I'll explain this a little bit. In our Canadian culture, we're sort of raised to try to be as independent as you can be. And so what happens is when you need somebody's help, you have two choices. One, you can do whatever you're doing without asking for help, in which case you could potentially, be creating problems and potential hazards because you're doing something where you really should have asked for help, but you just were reluctant to speak up. And the other option is to ask for help and run the risk that the people you're asking for help from eventually get tired of that and feel like they start to pull away from you because they feel that you're a little too needy and they didn't sign up for this. They didn't ask to be your unofficial replacement, roommate or replacement family member or replacement partner. So, you have those two choices. And so it depends on your personality, which one you choose. And sometimes solos try to juggle it. But it's something you have to consider. It crosses your mind and doesn't even cross the mind of somebody who is living with others. So that's number three. And number four is cost. And there is no question about it. It is expensive these days living in Canada by yourself. unless you are affluent, if you have a really good job, a high-paying job, or you have some kind of family wealth, it's getting harder and harder to live on your own and still maintain a fairly, average standard of living. And it is just so costly to manage everything on one source of income that is definitely a factor. The next one is, I've got a little note here so that I can remember. And the next one, number 5, is illness or injury. So particularly when you're ill, you don't really have the energy reserves that you have when you're healthy. And sometimes it can be emotionally exhausting too. So if you are dealing with pain or an illness or a significant injury and you're trying to do that on your own in the household, it's hard, very hard. And you can have your little big emotional breakdowns where you just end up bawling your eyes out, not from the injury or the illness, but because you don't have any more reserves emotionally to cope with this challenge that you're faced with right now. And when you're really sick, and you have nobody to assist you to go to the washroom or to bring you food or, to make sure you're not getting worse, that's, sometimes it's not so good not to have people living with you. And solos definitely have to think about that and make sure that they've got something in place, somebody that could maybe come stay with them or go and stay with the other people or have a phone check-in or something, because it's tough. I had a cycling accident about just a little over 10 years ago, and it was a bad one. I tore my rotator cuff and I separated my shoulder, and I was in extreme pain, and it took about a year to kind of get better. But those first few weeks, man, and especially the day I came home from the injury, and I was still in my bloody clothes, and there was no way I was going to be able to get them off because I couldn't lift my arm. Well, it was in a sling at that point, but I wouldn't have been able to lift it no matter what. I was in such pain. My daughter had to cut my clothes off of me, and she had to get me things for a few days, and it was tough. It was really hard. So illness and injury, that's number 5. Number 6, another reason why it's not so great to live alone, is projects built for 2 people. Like anytime you need to assemble large furniture or put something together or move furniture and it takes 2 people, one person just simply can't do it, either because you just don't have the reach or you don't have the strength. And then if you have to ask someone to help you, sometimes you have to wait a week and a half till they're free to come help you. And so it's just the inconvenience of not being able to proceed with what you wanted to do because you don't have that second person. The 7th reason why it's not so great to live alone sometimes is that you don't have somebody who has your back and realizes when something's wrong very quickly. So if you go off to work and it's a bad snowstorm and you never make it home that night, or for whatever reason your behavior is off or your mental health is declining, or somebody's come into your world that is suspicious and they're maybe not so good for you. People who live with you, they know when there's something wrong with your patterns or when there's a change in your personality or your comings and goings, and they react fairly quickly to that because they worry. But when you're on your own, you might have just talked to your family member and they're not expecting to hear from you for a week. And, maybe you work on your own or you're not working anymore, so there's nobody expecting you. There's that lack of somebody having your back. Okay, number 8 are the changes that you get in your personality that make you less flexible and less accommodating. And I think it's fairly common for people to even admit that themselves, that at some point they are less flexible because they don't have to be, and they don't even think they could live with someone now because they've been living on their own too long. I've heard lots of people say that. They say, I don't know, I've been on my own for so long now, I think it would be really hard to live with someone. I think they would drive me crazy. Haven't had to be as flexible and as accommodating as people who have to live with others. And so there is that risk, and you have to pay attention to that and be careful. Whoa, I almost got zinged by a bird. There's a chickadee flipping all around. I don't know why it doesn't want me here because it's too late in the season for it to have babies, but there's another one having a bath just to my left. So they're very active right now for October in Ontario. Okay, number 9, another reason why it's not so great to live alone, and it really depends, you know, but food, I find, is a challenge because I like to eat, the vast majority of my food is fresh. And a lot of that doesn't do well with freezing. Some of it does, but a lot of it doesn't, I have discovered. And so what happens is I have to buy less variety in a week so that I can make sure that I get through what I did buy before it starts to rot. So then what happens is I end up eating the same meal 4 nights in a row. It's like boring. There's less variety. The other thing is it's more expensive because if you want to have more variety, you're going to have to buy things very in small amounts. Like, you know, go to the store and buy 1 avocado and 10, you know, Brussels sprouts. And, you know, you're going to end up paying more than if you're buying things in bulk. So that's another challenge with food, and food too, in terms of preparing it. You know, there are days you come in so exhausted from your day that it's so lovely when you walk through the door and somebody else got home ahead of you and is already cooking. And it's such a relief. You can walk in, the house smells nice, and you've got a warm meal waiting for you. And sometimes with solos, when they're exhausted, they come through the door. And it's like, oh, if I start cooking now, it's going to be too late by the time I eat it, or I just don't have the energy, or I can't even think. I've made so many decisions today, can't even think what I want. And so sometimes, you know, you might not be eating as well as you should because it's just you anyway, and you're just too tired to think about it. So suddenly a bowl of popcorn on the couch feels better than anything else. So food sometimes can be problematic. Then the 10th reason why it's not so great to live alone is that you might not be able to have a pet even though you'd love to have one. Because depending on your lifestyle, it might not be fair to the pet. If you're going to be gone most of the day, it could be that's, you know, your pet is going to be understimulated. They're not going to meet their physical needs. They're going to be lonely themselves, and you're going to have very little time for them. So it could be that you have to make a decision that at that time in your life, you're not going to have a pet, and even though you would have dearly loved to have one. Or maybe you travel a lot on the weekends, and so, you know, it's just going to be too much of a hassle to constantly ask people to watch your pet for you. So, you know, sometimes I've heard people say, I would love to have a pet, but it would be better to have like a part-time pet. You know, I'll have to foster other people's pets or take in other friends' pets when they travel because I just don't have it right now to give properly to a pet. And so they miss a pet. You know, I love having a pet. I really would miss not having a pet. But I know that when this pet is gone, she's very old now, so I know that her days are numbered, and it makes me sad. But when she's gone, as much as I will miss her greatly and so want to have a pet, I won't be getting a pet for quite some time because they do tie you down, and I don't have someone to share the load. So those are all of my reasons, and there you have it, Kathy. I got your counterpoint to my first point of video, but I still have to say that as many people as I know who are solo, they all say, despite all of the challenges, they love their life, and they don't know if they have it in them to go back to living with someone. And I do know that some people are having to consider living with people just because of the cost of living now. And they're starting to have to look at living with family and sharing something together, or getting a stranger who's a roommate and renting out a room in their house, and they don't want to do it, but they feel like they might have no you know, other way to make ends meet. So it's a tough one, isn't it? At any rate, that's what I leave you with today. I'd love to hear your comments about how you've managed to make it work to address these challenges, or to just, you know, commiserate with these challenges. But overall, I hope the message is that living solo can be awesome, even though I've made this video to satisfy the needs of the people who wanted to see the other side of the argument. And this is Michelle at Solo in Canada, Musings from Midlife. That's the exact name of my blog. And at YouTube, I am just at Solo in Canada. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, because it is the only way that Google will ever start to show my channel to other people, is if they think that people are enjoying the things I have to say. So if you feel like it's useful and you got some value, you could really help me out, because I am trying to get some representation out there in the internet for us solos at middle age, and I just feel we are drastically underrepresented. Everything I click on for middle age issues and middle age challenges and lifestyles is we this and we that, and it's very few about people who live on their own. And when it comes to solos, a lot of it is just about singlehood and people who are dating and people are trying to find a partner. So there's a lot of that too. And there isn't a significant amount of people who are just, of stuff on the internet about solos in middle age, and particularly Canadians, because I want to get a Canadian voice out here. And hopefully some of the Canadians who are living abroad will feel a little taste of home when they come and check this channel. So for you people who might be living abroad right now, the Blue Jays are doing really well. They're having an awesome season, and they are about to have another game in a couple of days, and everybody's rooting for them. And in the news, they are yet again discussing whether or not they should get rid of daylight savings time and not have the clocks bounce back. And that discussion just seems like every decade they discuss this. It never changes, but that's where we are right now in Canada. So great to see everybody. Check out my other videos and have the good rest of your day.